My name is Ed Zick, and I live at 2739 Salt Point Turnpike.
Okay. How old were you when you joined the fire company, and how many years are you on?
I was 30 years old, and I've been on 40 plus years.
Why did you join the fire company?
I wanted to help the community. I knew a few people, and they said, just join the rescue squad. I said, it's no blood and guts, but turned out it wasn't that way. So,
Do you have any family members that were in a fire company before you or coming up after you?
no,
So completely
I'm the only one.
only one. When you came on, who was your chief? Do you recall who your chief was?
Dennis Smith.
Dennis. And what was the fire company like when you first came on?
It was a great thing to be a member of. I really enjoyed it. I got started in the fire service because down at IBM, I joined the fire brigade down there, and eventually I went to emergency control. And I got interested in it, and then I talked to people up here, and when you joined, everybody accepted you. There were a lot of older members that, kind of like took you under their wing, showed you the ropes, and they knew deep down inside that they were getting old. And myself and just about everybody you interviewed today were the next generation that were coming up.
Well, okay, next question is, what were you trained in? Like, what kind of classes did you take?
When I joined, I was mostly on the medical end, the EMT end. I took essentials, and on emergency control down at IBM, I had all the hazmat classes, pump operator classes, just about everything that was required here. I took down there, and, because basically we got paid. So I took training down there.
Did you have, as far as your training with the rescue squad, did you start off like with advanced first aid, or did you come in as an EMT?
I came in as an EMT.
And did you have a favorite side of it? Once you got into the company here, did you like have a favorite one over the other?
For some reason, after I was in the squad for a while, I started being officers there. So that kind of restricted me on being officers in the fire end of it. I enjoyed the fire end of it, but I dedicated myself more towards the EMT. That's why I didn't take a lot of classes. Like, I regret not taking fire police and things back then, but with all the EMT training I was doing and IV training and all that, it just ate up a lot of my time.
When you came on, like what were the calls, like the amount of calls, like compared to what we're going through now?
When I came on, there were a lot more rescue calls. It seemed that we were out 1 or 2 nights a week. At that point, I worked second shift, so I did a lot of daytime calls because there were not many people around the daytime. And then I got home at midnight and did a lot of night calls. But it seems the volume was a lot heavier back then. And back then when they dispatched you, they tell you whose house it was at. And that meant a lot too, because if you knew that person going to the call, you had an emotion side of it too.
And then like the types of calls, you said what about the fire side of it? Do you think there were more fire calls back then?
Oh, I made many fire calls back then. I made a lot of fire calls back then. I was active on both ends, but like I said, due to restrictions, I think everybody knows how much time, the medical end of it takes for the training. Yeah, but I went through essentials, and like I said, I had all the fire training where I worked. So I enjoyed the fire side of it equally as the EMT side of it. But you can only dedicate so much time.
Right. What kind of like enjoyable things do you remember for the fire company here that we had going on back then into now?
Well, I can remember the carnivals. As much as they were a pain in the neck, we had a great time. We had a real good time. I can remember, excuse me, I can remember when we had Operation Snowleaf, living here for a week with all the kids. I can remember parties up at the Spiers house that, because nobody really wanted to go away, because we went away, we would go away as a bunch, and we were all pretty close back then. Everybody knew when there was a call that, Tommy Smith and Joe Blow, they're away. So you knew you felt obligated to go, is what you felt like. Because it's like, okay, I have to go to it now. No one's around. So you never had to worry. I mean, back then I had 2 kids, I was divorced, and many times I just dropped my kids off and somebody would watch them, and I'd go on the call. I can remember we got lectured that they don't want the kids in the ambulance, and pick on a member here, Mickey Dillinger, who had a lot of common sense. I have to give him credit for that. But we had a serious call, and I had my kids with me, and I said, I can't go in. And I can remember Mickey looking at me, boy, you get in the back of that ambulance, I got the kids in the front. I said, we were told not to take the kids. He goes, I'll take care of that. And it was a good thing we did. That person ended up paralyzed for life. So it seemed back then there was a lot more common sense. There were rules. I shouldn't say there were rules. There were guidelines. And if you had a reason to break the guideline, nobody would ever question you. It would be that, okay, that was a good thing you did. It was a common sense call. And now we seem a little more rigid, on doing these things. I mean, I don't know whether you want to call them, I hate using the word procedures. I like the word guidelines, but unfortunately in this business, everything doesn't go the way you want to. And that's the unfortunate part.
What do you think is the biggest change that you've seen through the years?
The people that volunteer now, and I'm not picking on them, because they have to take a lot more training than we do, but getting them all to click as a unit, it seems to be a problem to me. And maybe it's me. Maybe I just see that, I used to come to the firehouse all the time. And I can remember when I was still married, I used to tell my ex-wife that I'm going to the firehouse, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Well, it takes me 4 minutes to get here. So I knew it was going to be longer than that. And then you come up here and somebody would be here and, you just start BSing and, then you say, this on the engine isn't right, and we just change it. We're able to work around the firehouse and nobody, questioned. Now it seems there's a fear that people don't want to touch anything or do anything. So.
What's the most rewarding part of it that you've gotten out of it?
The most rewarding part I got out of it is I delivered a baby once on Christmas Eve, dressed in a Santa suit. And the young lady just got sent home from the doctor, and the doctor says, you're good, you won't have the baby for another 2 weeks. And she made it right about here. And I went in the house, there were kids downstairs. I had nothing really, no clothes under this Santa costume, so I had to pull the pillow out and tighten up the pants, and I went up and I delivered the baby. And that was a highlight. I also had a save on CPR, which was another highlight. So there is gratification there. Problem is the calls like that are far and few between. So most of the time a lot of them don't have a happy ending.
You're lucky you had the baby, because Bob Koch always wanted to deliver a baby. He always would be in the back of the ambulance, and they'd get to the hospital before that baby was born.
Well,
And Irv did too, and Marilyn, I think, did too.
like I said, I got there and she says, I have to push. I said, don't push. And she says, I'm pushing. And next thing I know, out came the football. Luckily, I was a good receiver. And then,
Well, that's what Irv always said about it. If you ever have to deliver a baby, it's just like football, just get ready.
that's exactly what it was. And I can remember cutting the umbilical cord, looking at the mother and looking at the baby, and with a pair of scissors saying, okay, who's going to scream first? Going back and forth. But I finally did it, and it was like, but that was a great experience. I'll never forget it.
And if I do recall, somehow or other, did you drive the ambulance or did you stay in the back? Because her son, the little boy that was on the scene.
I was in the back. I was in the back. I was on the fire truck. I jumped off the fire truck. And then at the house, Maria and Barbara Hoxie came in, and the three of us went in the back. And I forget who drove, but it was quite the experience. Yeah.
Good one.
Yep.
Do you have anything else that you want to add to your interview? Like any thoughts about the fire company or?
I've been.
Excuse me, what I should ask you is Michael had a great question. He says, what do you see for the future of the fire company?
That's a tough question. And I've wrestled with that question many, many, many times because, as you know, I'm involved in the 9/11 Flag Committee. And when that idea first came up, all the older members, let's leave it at that, were the ones that had their hands up. And even to this day, it's mostly the older members. And I don't know how to get the camaraderie that we had back in the 80s. I mean, back in the 80s, you could call anybody, anytime, hey, can you come out to the firehouse? I'm doing this, that. Sure, I'll be right up. Now, I mean, you look at Monday night drills. I mean, Monday night was always packed here. It was, we did and you did what you had to do, and then you just stood around and talked with the guys. We don't seem to have that now. I don't know, and I don't know why. I think a lot of it's home life. People, people say they don't have time, but we all have the same amount of time. I'm retired, and everybody goes, well, you got a lot more time than I do, and I don't. I have 24 hours in a day, just like everyone else, and it depends how you want to use it. Back then I wasn't afraid to give it, 4 or 5 hours whenever to come up here. But I don't know what's because schedules got busy, but I get frustrated when people say, yeah, well, you should be up there more, you have more time. It's like, no, I don't. I got the same amount of time as you. It's just how I choose to use it. And if you look at how much time I got left in my life versus somebody that's 30, they got a lot more time than I do. So, and I don't know. I mean, we don't have a rescue squad now. I mean, that broke my heart to see the rescue squad go. I put a lot of hours in that, a lot of time, a lot of, trying us to get defib, trying to get us IV, and, going on all these calls. And now I have a paid service that doesn't have the emotion that the people on the rescue squad had. If they knew it was a local, there was a personal effect there. And I'm not knocking Northern Dutchess here, but it's a job. It's their job to be how many hours they need to put in. And to me, that having a calming hand, or a calming voice there to say, hey, it's going to be all right. Everything's going to be fine. Just relax, breathe slow. In fact, I'm not an EMT anymore, but still, if I have a call in my neighborhood and I know the person, I'll go there. I can't do medical, but I can say, I'll pick on you, Kathie. Hey, Kathie, it's going to be okay. Okay, I've seen this before. Just relax. The ambulance will be here. And that means a lot. So.
You knew so many more people in the town too at that point, because the whole demographic of the town is so much different now.
Everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody knew everybody. I mean, if you had a call and they said it was at the Spiers residence, they didn't have to give an address. You knew where it was. Or if they said 2 doors down from the Spiers residence, or they said the McPherson residence, you knew where that was.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But one thing I don't want to leave off of your interview, and I might in my notes, is that I would like you to tell us how you came about with the 9/11 idea, the flag idea.
Well, I was coming back from somewhere, and I was going through Great Barrington, and I saw flags outside the firehouse. There were a couple hundred, but that's all there was. And I said, boy, that's a nice tribute. And I came back, I started thinking about it. I did lose a personal friend that I used to work with, Paul Tegmeyer. And we had a lot of good times together after work, during work. And unfortunately, he lost his life. So I started thinking, and I said, we got the perfect venues, Town Hall Hill. And I said, wouldn't it look really sharp if we put 3,000 flags on that hill to honor everybody? And I can remember bringing it up in the meeting, and I said, once again, this is another one of my harebrained schemes that I came up with. And, well, first I called Kathie, and I said, what do you think of this? And she says, a great idea, because unfortunately, usually when I get a harebrained scheme, Kathie's sucked into it before everybody else is. And she says, that'd be a great idea. And when I brought it up in the meeting, I was a little hesitant. And I told everybody, I said, look, it's an idea. We don't have to vote on it tonight. Let's just think about it. By the end of the meeting, so many people came to me with the idea, we should get the band, we should get this, we should do this, we should do this. And I knew that we were going to do it. And, well, this was during COVID, so we had these meetings, which we had to hold outside. But besides being, a meeting for the flags, it was also a good social release for all us older people that were in the company for so long, because we didn't get to see each other. And it just snowballed. I mean, I was just going to put helter-skelter 3,000 flags on the hill, and then everybody's like, nope, we're going to do it this way, we'll grid it. And then it was like, let's put it up as towers. It's like, we're getting a little complicated now. But everybody wanted to do it. Everybody felt part of it, and it was a success. And to me, I don't want to see that stop. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the interest, it's the same people, but unfortunately, the people that are involved and really deeply involved are getting old. A few of us can't even do the hill anymore. And, but I think it's easy to say we'll never forget. Everybody can say that. But to really do it. It's tough, and we should never forget. You know, my father always held, you know, World War II close to his vest, but he remembered it. And people like me didn't really remember it that well because we weren't part of it. And I'm looking at these kids in school, and they don't, you know, they know about it, but they don't know all about it. And that's why I feel it's important that, you know, when the 25th comes up, I have some harebrained ideas to get the school kids involved, just because I want them to have an education on it. You know, so, and like I said, to me, it's a personal thing, but the company backed me up on that so, you know, with heart and soul. That's all I can say. You know, like I said, the birthday parades, you know, you ride around those birthday parades and see those kids and 95-year-old lady on a walker raising her hands and waving. I mean, stuff like that's important, you know. Like I said, we do more than put out fires. Unfortunately, on the fire end, I don't have the agility or the strength to do anymore. You know, I can operate a pump here and there, but, you know, the social end of it, I'm trying to keep so everybody, you know, stays together. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.